Thank you for watching Policy and Prejudice. My guest this week is a familiar face. You've seen him many times here on clbTV. He's one of our featured commentators. He's a good friend of mine. His name is Patrick Freeman. He is also the sports director for this very same station that we're in right now, this very same studio that we're sitting in, as well as he has his own sports show entitled Sports Talk. He's been around for many years. Formerly the host of The Message, also a very long-running political talk show. But we're here today. I have him here today because a lot of people want to know about the proposed downtown stadium, because he raised this issue a couple of months back. Buffalo needs a stadium in downtown Buffalo. A retractable-domed stadium is his idea. You know, and it's really the latest. You're the latest person to really bring that
right.
idea.
It's an old idea.
It's an old idea. Believe me, very old. Started when I was a kid, but he's the latest one to really bring this up. And you come up with the retractable dome, and you're not a stranger to this because you've seen this happen. You've seen this type of stuff happen in other cities,
right?
And you've seen a trend of urban, I should say, sports stadiums being built in urban areas, whereas it didn't really happen before, maybe a couple of decades ago, but now it's becoming a trend.
Right.
But his name is Patrick Freeman. How's it going there, Patrick?
Good. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing okay.
Pleasure to be here on your show.
Well, thank you very much. You know, every now and then I get a chance to interview people, you know,
right.
And you know, talk about some important issues of the day. But tell us about this stadium. I know that you and our county executive, Mark Policarz, has been kind of going back and forth, more or less, over this issue, because Policarz wants to renovate Ralph Wilson Stadium, which is out Orchard Park,
right.
What, 10, 15 miles away from Buffalo.
Right.
You want the stadium right downtown. You say there's space, ample
absolutely.
space for a stadium as well as parking in downtown Buffalo.
Absolutely. We've identified more than 5 different sites where the stadium could be built. There are 2 sites from the study from 1969 and 70 that was commissioned by the Erie County Commission on Stadium Projects. And that study came out in 1969-1970. It identified 5 sites, 2 of them located downtown, 1 in Hamburg, 1 in Clarence, and 1 in Amherst. And it gave an interesting viewpoint of where Buffalo needed to go in the next 40 years. And when I say Buffalo, I mean the Western New York region. Somewhere along the line, things went wrong, and they decided to build a stadium. In actuality, they paid for 2 stadiums and built a stadium in Orchard Park after they were first supposed to build a stadium in Lancaster. That idea was nixed for various reasons. There was some illegal activity. People went to jail. But we ended up with a stadium in Orchard Park. The problem is now, as things have gone up in price, the more value NFL teams have, the amount of money that's being brought in and charged for an NFL team to operate, it has become fiscally irresponsible for us to operate a stadium that is not in partnership economically with the region. Right. And most people think, well, we get the parking and we get the concession. No, you do not. Right. Ralph Wilson controls the parking. He controls the concessions. He gets all the revenue from that stadium. Everything about game day is based on Ralph Wilson and the Bills organization. Right. You do not get any residual effects from this. And one of the biggest problems with it is its location. And the location of that stadium and its usage is not in partnership with the Western New York region. Whereas other cities have found out that, yes, we build a new facility, but we must make it in economic partnership with the region. So as Ralph Wilson Stadium rather, it does not bring in any revenue. The only revenue that comes from that stadium that benefits the state of New York is ticket sale tax on individual tickets that are sold, which amounts to $10 to $20 million a year. That's it. And that stadium at this point is only being used 7 to 9 times a year, whereas what we're proposing is building a stadium with a retractable roof in the downtown area that can be used year-round, that's made part of your convention space, whereas it can be used for concerts, trade shows, conventions, festivals, various events year-round that will bring in economic revenue to the region year-round and also attract other entities to locating to the downtown area.
So you don't need football really for your proposed stadium. You don't need football to support it.
Absolutely not.
It can survive and thrive and profit even without an NFL team.
You're the first media person, and I want to congratulate you on this, that has interviewed me on this subject that does not necessarily bring up the Buffalo Bills. With this stadium, the Buffalo Bills are not in the equation. If the Bills would like to relocate to this new state-of-the-art facility, I think we could. It should be part of the option. But to build the stadium, you do not need the Buffalo Bills because it is a facility that is going to be used year-round for various projects that will bring in revenue year-round to the Western New York area. And the Buffalo Bills have nothing to stand on economically in what they bring to the table to even dictate the discussion on a new stadium because they don't bring in any revenue to the region.
Right. Well, see, now listen, I remember growing up in this area in Buffalo. I kind of remember talk of a new downtown stadium as far back as maybe when I was in 6th grade, 5th or 6th grade. Okay, and in between that, in the late 60s when I first started hearing about that talk, and the 73 when I first heard about when they finished building Ralph Wilson Stadium. What happened in between there? Okay, because next thing I'm hearing about a Downtown Dome Stadium in '69. All of a sudden I'm in O.J. Simpson and Buffalo Bills, they're thriving and everything, and O.J. breaks the record. Next thing you know, we're heading up to Orchard Park.
Right.
I don't know if I even heard of Orchard Park up to that point. And now we got to go there. We got to go way out there to the stadium.
It's ridiculous. One of the worst decisions that has haunted this area for the last 40 years. Yeah. And it was all because of very poor leadership on the part of the mayor, the county executive at that time, and also the governor. They need to all be held accountable, because if you study the plan that was put together by that committee, which was ordered by Edward Raff, who was then the county executive, that plan was never implemented. It identified 5 sites, and we ended up taking one of the worst sites based on scandal and illegal activity. Right. And that's how we ended up into the suburbs. Also, I think Jack Kemp might have had something to do with this too, because he was a Hamburg congressman, and he benefited his district having the Buffalo Bills located in his district, which he's a former Buffalo Bill quarterback. You
know the funny thing, I don't see, I walked through that stadium today, I don't see Jack Kemp's picture up there. It's all Jim Kelly's picture. Over the stadium and practice facility.
I think he's
it's an overkill of Jim Kelly picture.
Yeah, he's on the Wall of Fame.
He's on that.
They're basically placating to the glory years of the 90s, and which, don't get me wrong, Ralph Wilson Stadium has lived out its usefulness. Yeah. But now you're in a different age of economic climate that says that if you're going to have a facility like that, look at what the Minnesota Vikings just did. In coming to their stadium agreement, the agreement is a partnership between the NFL team and the region. The region gets to use that stadium for conventions, festivals, concerts, trade shows to bring in additional revenue to the region. Sure. Whereas Ralph Wilson Stadium brings in nothing, no revenue to the region. And that's what people don't realize. Does it provide jobs on game day and during the football season? Yes, it does. But we're talking about an entity that's going to provide permanent jobs year-round and attract more functions, more businesses to the downtown hub of Erie County.
Well, back in the day, you know, the stadiums that were kind of off, they were the new stadiums that were built off aside from the city, built off city. Okay, you might want to say Foxborough, Shaver Stadium in Foxborough, Anaheim Stadium,
right?
What, 30 miles away or so from Los Angeles,
Pontiac, right?
Okay, you know
that was the suburban rural trend.
Yeah, that was a trend back then.
Right.
Now I've noticed the trend is go back to the city,
coming back into the city,
and it has been. And this takes place whether or not the city's population has been gentrified or not.
Right.
On based on what I've seen. Are you aware that the NFL went to the Oakland Raiders this week and talked to them about building a new stadium?
I believe it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They're saying we're gonna put let's put a new stadium right here. You know, downtown. You know, Alameda Coliseum's getting kind of old. It's been around for what, almost 40 years.
Right. That's one of the older stadiums.
One of the oldest stadiums around. Okay. That's the end thing now is go back to the city.
Absolutely.
What's Buffalo's problem?
I don't know. I can't figure it out. In my meetings with Mark Polenkart, he is just adamantly against it. He says that there's no place to put it, which is not true.
Oh, I've seen plenty of open space.
Yeah, he says there's no parking. We say that there's plenty of parking. You compare it to other NFL cities. You don't need 12,000 spaces that you have at Ralph Wilson Stadium for a downtown city stadium. Also, too, one of my biggest problems with this, Chris, is the lack of visionary thinking on elected officials. Mr. Polenkart is showing status quo Band-Aid economic thinking in his, just the way he's proceeding with this stadium issue and the Buffalo Bills lease agreement. And that's why I think he's had some serious problems. He's not going to admit that because if you remember, he said that the lease, he wanted to get the lease done in principle by training camp. Then he comes out and says, well, it's not going to be done until maybe December. And then all of a sudden, Governor Cuomo appoints a sports liaison, legal liaison, to assist in this process, which I have never heard of the governor having to do. And I think all in all, it's starting to show badly for the county executive. I think the county executive has done a very poor job of representing his constituency in this issue. And the only way that he could properly represent his constituency with this issue was to have looked at a new stadium. And I think he committed himself right away to the renovation of Ralph Wilson Stadium, Band-Aid economics. It's cheaper, blah, blah, blah. It's not cheaper.
But do you think pride is driving Polenkart?
Oh, absolutely. This is some pride and ego going on here.
Yeah.
Because he's dead wrong.
Yeah.
He's dead wrong.
You know,
you could spend...
Which is not unfamiliar with Buffalo.
No.
Buffalo officials.
It's a lot of ego here.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm talking about. He's saying it doesn't make any sense to spend $1 billion. Well, it does make sense if you compare it to other cities that have done this, such as Indianapolis. Indianapolis spent $720 million. It has brought in $2.25 billion in 4 years. So to spend $1 billion and bring in $2.25 billion, that to me is good business. Also, you created 4,200 new jobs. That to me is what our elected officials are supposed to do.
Yeah. Now listen, you were at Indianapolis last year for the Super Bowl.
Yes.
Well, really earlier this year.
Outstanding job.
Lucas Oil Stadium.
Outstanding facility. Wow. Outstanding.
I know they got the skywalk and all that stuff going on.
7 commercial blocks are connected in downtown Indianapolis. Once they built the stadium and made it part of their convention space project, Marriott built a new hotel, Westin built a new hotel. They added 4,700 new hotel rooms once they knew that Indianapolis was going to become a major player on the major attraction market. That's what we're saying for Buffalo. Buffalo needs to become a major player, but they've got to have...
Where is it located? Where specifically is it located?
The stadium?
Yeah.
Downtown Indianapolis.
Downtown Indianapolis.
And they had another stadium in downtown Indianapolis that was domed, but was not an adequate facility and was not connected to their convention space.
Okay.
What they did, they got rid of the RCA Dome and built Lucas Oil Stadium, which is a multi-use facility, which is connected by tunnels to their convention space. And it's used year-round. and it's strategically placed. They only have 3,000 parking spaces, Chris. Now, you've got a county executive going on TV saying, oh, no, there's no parking. They just hosted the Super Bowl. That's the biggest event in the world.
Yeah.
And there was no parking near the stadium.
Yeah.
Everybody had to be bussed in,
right.
you know, and that's the way they usually do for Super Bowls. So Indianapolis did an outstanding job, and they shared the wealth. They have the Black Expo there. Various people made a lot of money off the Super Bowl. Sure. They did an outstanding job, and they had excellent weather. And that's something, they were very lucky that week, but it's a winter site. Basically, it's a winter site.
Right.
And they did an outstanding job, and the gross revenue for that week for the Super Bowl was said to be around $642 million.
Now, you rubbed elbows. You talked to some of the people, the officials, the mayor,
oh, yeah.
the owner.
Greg Ballard, the mayor, Ursi.
Yeah.
He was adamant about Buffalo coming back, and he, in getting this stadium, he became a partner with the region of Indianapolis, and that's what happened. Is the Colts the feature part of that stadium?
Yeah.
Yes, they're the feature part of the stadium, but the key to the stadium is being used year-round, which brings in way more revenue than what the Colts generate themselves.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's a great thing.
Let's talk about cost. Okay.
Cost was $720 million.
That's how much Lucas Oil Stadium?
Lucas Oil Stadium cost $720 million. It opened in 2008, and it was basically built on public revenue from, they created a food and beverage tax.
Okay.
And from that food and beverage tax, it basically financed the stadium with public money.
Right.
But since they did this, that stadium has brought in $2.25 billion in gross revenue and helped create 4,200 permanent jobs.
Yeah. See, I asked that question because in Buffalo, whenever you talk about something benefiting Buffalo, bringing something to Buffalo, everybody becomes an accountant.
Right.
Okay. What would be the cost? Okay, for it in comparison to renovating the stadium, which would cost taxpayers
before all said and done,
yeah.
We did a study of the last 5 renovation projects for NFL stadiums, Chris. The cheapest one that we found was Lambeau Field, which is $295 million. Right. Our current county executive at a town hall meeting countered me when I brought this to his attention by saying that because we did all this great renovation work in 1998, that our cost would be well under $100 million. As you well know, he's had to backtrack that statement. They're already over $220 million, and before all said and done, I think it's going to be $220 to $300 million minimum, possibly $350 million. So I think the cost of renovation is $320 million to $350 million, with a estimated gross revenue as compared to Lucas Oil Stadium. Let's take a 4-year period. Lucas Oil Stadium opened in 2008. They had to create a food and beverage tax to finance the stadium. It cost $720 million. It opened in 2008. 4 years later, they've hosted a Super Bowl that's brought in $642 million. Other revenue that it's brought in was $2.25 billion. That's over $3.1 billion in revenue. Ralph Wilson Stadium, let's take a study. If we spend let's say $300 million. Well, let's go with their cost. $220 million. Let's go with the 220. Okay?
All right.
We know it's going to be more.
It's going to be more.
Yeah, but let's go with the 220.
I say it's going to be 400,000.
Yeah.
Okay, but we'll go with more.
That's the gross revenue from Ralph Wilson Stadium for the taxpayer of Western New York is a big zero, because the only person that benefits from the revenue from that stadium is Ralph Wilson and the Buffalo Bills. Yeah. Do you hear what I'm saying? It's zero. As compared to Lucas Oil Stadium, which on a 4-year study from 2008 to 2012 brought in $2.25 billion, plus they hosted the Super Bowl, which brought in $642 million to the entire region. The Buffalo Bills' gross revenue, I mean, let's take the Bills out of it. Ralph Wilson Stadium's gross revenue as benefit in Western New York is zero.
Well, look at it this way. How long has it been? You said 98. 98 was the last renovation.
Yes.
That's 15 years ago.
Yes.
So think about the wear and tear of 15 years also.
Absolutely.
Okay? So let's say, hypothetically, let's say they get this renovation done. Okay? How long is it here? How long will that renovation last? How much will it cost us? And what's the chances of Wilson bolting even before 10 years is up?
Well, he's going to bolt because he's 93 years old. I mean, he's going to bolt through natural process sooner or later.
Right.
I mean,
but
people don't want to talk about it.
Let's say hypothetically he lives to be 120.
Let's say he does. And
okay.
Let's say Wilson lives to 120. He could bolt at any moment because there's always a buyout clause in any NFL contract. There's a relocation clause too, which is $200 million. But they just sold the Dodgers for what, $2 billion? I mean, $2 billion for the Dodgers? They could buy an NFL franchise. The problem is, Chris, is that you're going to get a new ownership group. If Ralph Wilson passes, that new ownership group's going to want a new stadium. You invest $220 million in an old facility. I don't think $220 million is worth a facility like Ralph Wilson Stadium because there is no residual economic feedback to the region. It can only be used part of the year. It's an outdoor stadium. It does not have a retractable roof on it. It cannot host concerts in February. It's impossible. So you're limiting.
You know, we haven't had those Summerfest concerts since back in the days. You know what I'm saying?
And then you're still limited to.
It's
a seasonal facility.
Exactly.
So what we're looking at is that he wants you to invest.
Yeah, he wants you to put new money into an old structure.
Yeah, that is not up to standard. It doesn't have any HD wiring. They have to bring in HD wiring for every game, people.
Yeah.
So that's cost.
Yeah.
And then this is how backwards our leadership has been here. When they signed off on the Bills playing those games in Toronto, they didn't sign off on not paying the game day expenses that they agreed to in the original Dennis Gorski lease of 1998.
Yeah.
In other words, what I'm trying to tell Western New Yorkers, you are being represented by some bad leadership. We still pay the Buffalo Bills $1 million per game in game day expenses, whether those games are at Ralph Wilson Stadium or not. When they go to Toronto, Rodgers picks up the whole game day expenses. It's their operation. The Bills are just providing the team, and they're providing the venue and operation. But Erie County is still paying Ralph Wilson over $1 million to put that game on. That's how bad the leadership. And what we did, we restarted researching all this, and all of a sudden, I've become the Western New York bad guy because I'm exposing things that we should all know.
And look at this, a new stadium downtown opens up naming rights, right? Possibilities of naming rights.
Naming rights.
What's the potential of that?
Well, let's look at Lucas Oil. Lucas Oil just did their naming rights was 20 years, $122 million. Metropolitan Life's naming rights was close to $400 million. Farmers Stadium, which hasn't even built yet. They already bought the naming rights to the stadium in Los Angeles. That should tell us we need to build a new stadium. That was $400 million. This is what we're talking about. Over 10, 20, 30 years where these naming rights are, I would say, if it's 30 years, it's $10 million a year, minimum. You're looking at about $10 million a year. That covers all your operating costs per game. That covers a lot of the expenses that you have in the course of an NFL stadium if you're talking about the Buffalo Bills. You can do naming rights without the Buffalo Bills and still have your stadium. And one of the problems we have with the negotiations with Ralph Wilson Stadium is that in my conversation with the county executive, if I'm lying, I'm flying, he said, oh no, he's not going to take his name off the stadium. What do you mean he's not going to take his name off the stadium? This is not an option.
This is old-fashioned Google. What
you know what I'm saying? This is not an option. You cannot afford to have Ralph Wilson's name on that stadium any longer. You can't. The naming rights are not an option.
See, this stadium right here is going to be built, like you said, it doesn't need the Bills per se.
No.
The Bills could be bought could be owned by somebody else for 5 years anyway.
Absolutely.
Right? Ralph's kids don't seem to have a desire to want to own this team.
The team is going to be sold.
There
are rumors out there that there's some kind of succession plan in place.
Yeah.
Obviously, Ralph Wilson is a successful businessman. There's got to be some form of succession plan in place to protect the interests of his family. We go with that. But what we've heard is that this new group is going to want a new stadium. Yeah. They're not going to want Ralph Wilson Stadium. One reason, if you do a study of teams that have new stadiums, and you can find this information at the NFL Players Association site, teams that have new stadiums value increases 27% more than teams that do not. And that's one of the problems I have with this negotiations. It doesn't compute. Right. I've never heard of an NFL owner that does not want a new stadium. That doesn't go together. Well, it makes his franchise.
We got the only one here in the league.
That's what they're trying to tell. But he's publicly never said that.
Right.
So I've never heard the Buffalo Bills say that Ralph Wilson doesn't want a new stadium. I think every owner in the league would go after him. If he said that.
But polling cards are saying that.
Polling cards has said
He's putting words in Ralph's mouth, or is he just not giving Ralph another option?
Well, the most I've heard the Bills say is that they're happy with the stadium they have. They never said they didn't want a new one, but they said they're happy with the stadium they have. Right. And they just want it brought up to renovating standard. Renovating standard's $300 million.
Yeah.
That's not an option. You don't put $300 million into an old stadium like that.
What a new stadium? Because I think you talked before about the taxes and everything. Say, for example, what it costs. Would it be a burden on the taxpayer?
No, we've come up with a financial plan that takes away the burden. But the problem is you have to plan around it. Unfortunately, we have elected officials that will not adopt our financial plan. We have a financial plan in place that would alleviate most of the burden from taxpayers. Of course, there's going to be some burden, but guess what? You're about to invest in a stadium that's not going to bring you back any economic value. Right. Our financial plan says, yes, there's going to be some burden. We can cut out maybe a third of that burden. But that 2/3 will be paid for because you relocated the stadium in downtown Buffalo, and the revenue generated will pay for the stadium within 3 to 5 years. Whereas if you put the $200 to $300 million in Ralph Wilson Stadium, that money goes up smoke. It ain't paying for nothing.
It's not going to pay for anything.
No, and that's the difference. We have a financial plan that covers a third of the cost, takes the burden off taxpayers for a third of the cost, and then the 2/3 is paid for by the revenue, additional revenue paid for by the stadium.
So can you give us any details or
No.
anything about the financial plan?
No, I can't.
Okay.
They'll steal it.
I hear you.
They will, and I will be. I don't want to be like John Young. John Young invented the Buffalo chicken wing, and we don't mention his name enough.
Right.
And he should have a statue in the middle of downtown Buffalo. Yeah. Because he put this city on the map of the country as far as snacks for games and everything else. Buffalo chicken wing was invented by John Young, and he's not given the credit he deserves. We can't talk about that financial plan publicly, but if they bring us to the table and we start talking about that financial plan, we can definitely do it. We have a transportation plan that alleviates the parking. And all these infrastructure things that the county executive says would be astronomical, and we have to level 10 city blocks. Sure. We don't have to level 10 city blocks at all. We have a transportation plan. We have a financial plan. The financial plan is really one of the most simplistic ideas that we have put together that eliminates a third but covers a third, and you only have to come up with a third. Okay. So if they would bring us in and we present this financial plan, they would see that that financial plan gives you the key to building the stadium without killing the taxpayer and putting yourself in a position that you can pay off the cost of that stadium through the revenues that that stadium will produce within 3 to 5 years, whereas Ralph Wilson Stadium the taxes that you're going to get on ticket sales, it's going to take you 20 years for the state to get that back.
Sure.
So obviously our plan is much more legitimate than the plan we're getting from our elected officials, and that's very disturbing and disappointing.
Well, it's definitely, your idea is definitely a reasonable one, a pragmatic one, from what I can see, and it opens up a lot of possibilities in my mind.
Right.
Okay, you know, people talk about events, you know, Olympian type of events.
Right, right.
Okay.
2024, they're talking about Buffalo becoming a partner in Toronto's Olympic bid. Well,
you know,
guess what? You're going to have plans in place to present a bid.
Right.
And with what I'm hearing from our county executive, I don't see what kind of plans we're going to have in place.
Well, Buffalo, historically, we have been stuck with people who don't think that we're a city. We're a small town of West Virginia to them. Okay, and that's how they base their decision making. And you know, I know you know, obviously, I was there when you presented this idea before the council and before the legislatures. You know, and I remember when Buffalo had 3 major league sports teams.
Right, right.
In the city.
In the city.
Okay, 3 downtown major league sports teams in the city, and now we just have 1. All right, and here's the thing. We're down to 1 through some very deliberate and strategic efforts.
Right.
Okay, it's not accidental.
Right.
Okay, these guys sat down and plotted how to make Buffalo less economically advantageous.
Right.
And that's why we're at this stage today. That's why we're discussing the possibility of a downtown stadium today.
They have dismantled Buffalo, the region of Western New York. Whereas the region, if you visualize the region of Western New York, we should be light years ahead of the rest of the country. And unfortunately, we have had some of the worst leadership that you could imagine, and have made poor decisions all along the way. And this is not personal. I don't want to hear about you saying, well, he badmouthed what. It's not personal, this is business. I'm not perfect. I've made bad decisions. And I have to face those bad decisions. These are bad decisions that were made that hurt this region for the last 40 years. We have an opportunity today to begin correcting those problems. And if you examine what we've done with that stadium, based on the NFL, its relationship from an NFL franchise to the community, if you're going to have the NFL team involved, we could get this done. We don't have to have an NFL team involved to get this done. With our financial plan, our parking plan, and our transportation plan, we have put together a very viable idea that will benefit Western New York from Niagara Falls to Albany. If our elected officials will start listening and start moving towards making this happen. I've met with the county executive, I've met with the mayor. My criticism of them is that they have not brought these types of ideas to the forefront of their policy initiatives. And even though my meeting with the mayor was positive, I am not excited about the slow moving of the process. I think it is critical for us to move forward with building a stadium in downtown Buffalo and what goes along with it. You know, and you know, they want me to meet with a whole bunch of other people, and I have to chase down a whole bunch of other people. Chris, I have to work for a living too. This is what I do. This is my passion. This is not what I do for a living. I work 3 jobs.
But you know, I think based on that, based on your passion, based on your idea, especially this idea, you're walking a tightrope just like Walensa.
Yes.
Okay. You know, and that's how I'm going to end up in this story, in this interview.
Am I irritating people?
Yes.
I am. Good.
Obviously, this is Buffalo.
Yes.
That's the thing. Progress.
But that's our job.
Progress irritates people in this town. I've seen it. I've seen it up close, experienced it.
In the Band-Aid economics now.
Yeah. You know, and that's it. But I don't want a city 20, 30 years from now, you know, even after I'm gone, that's held together by Band-Aids. Well, okay? Because you know why? Because the Band-Aid stick wears off.
Right.
What happens? It falls.
It falls off, and the wound is is open back
The
up.
wound is open back up.
Chris, mark my word, all of you that see this video, there will come a day when, if they finally listen, or even if they don't listen, there will be a story written about a movement and what we're talking about here today, of a group of people that came together to try to save the Buffalo Bills. Normally I don't talk about the Buffalo Bills with the stadium, and I always try to make people understand I'm not in control of the Buffalo Bills.
Right.
They have nothing to do with this idea of a downtown stadium project unless they want to eventually move in there and then become part of it. But what we're trying to do is save the Buffalo Bills in this area. And there will come a day when a story is written about a group of people that really tried to save the Buffalo Bills in Western New York.
Okay. Well, you know what? Right now, there's a group of people that have taken votes on a poll. Could you give me some of the numbers? I know you've been keeping pretty good tracks on the Buffalo Bullet poll, the Change.org poll,
right?
And there's another one I know. I forget the name.
Well, the Buffalo Rumblings.
Yeah, Buffalo Rumblings.
The Buffalo Bullet poll was over 78%. It was 78% was in favor of a downtown stadium. Mixed 1080 AM WFO poll was 76%. No, I'm sorry. The Buffalo Bullet poll was 87% for a new stadium in downtown Buffalo, 12% against. The Mixed 1080 AM WFO poll was 74% in favor of a downtown stadium, 26% for renovating Ralph Wilson Stadium. And the Buffalo Rumblings poll, which surveyed more than 1,300 people, was 55% for a new stadium in downtown Buffalo and 44% in favor of renovating Ralph Wilson Stadium. And at Change.org, we have put a petition together. We have more than 1,900 members on Facebook of our downtown Buffalo Stadium project. We have over 100 people that have signed our petition online, and we have physically collected over 900 signatures of citizens of Western New York that would like to see a stadium built in downtown Buffalo.
This isn't just an issue with a small amount of people. People are thinking about this and voting on it.
Once they hear the rationale, it's a no-brainer. Because most people think there are people that think we get revenue out of the Bills playing at Ralph Wilson Stadium.
No.
You get nothing.
No, nothing.
All you get is you're a Bills fan.
Right.
You get the pride. Like Senator Schumer said in his press conference he had there last week. He said, the Buffalo Bills are the lifeblood of Western New York. That's true. We're all Bills fans. There's no question about it. I covered the Bills for 18 years. I'm a Bills fan through and through. I love the Buffalo Bills. But economically, the Buffalo Bills, they're not the life of Western New York economically. Economically, they bring in revenue. There are entities that benefit off the Buffalo Bills being here. There's no doubt about that. But the stadium itself brings in no additional revenue to Erie County or Western New York.
Okay, we're going to end it right here. Thank you for watching Policy and Prejudice. Thank my guest, Mr. Patrick Freeman.
Yes, sir.
Also my co-host on the network and other clbTV shows, as well as the sports director and talk show host of Mixed 1080 WUFO in Buffalo, New York. My name is Chris Stevenson. You all have a safe week.